Hello, my name is Michael Denney, and I'm going to be doing a book review on the real cost of fracking, how America's shale gas boom is threatening our families, pets, and food by Michelle Bamberger and Robert Oswald. First of all, I'd like to start by uh, going over what fracking is. Fracking is a form of natural gas extraction where drilling is done horizontally rather than vertically in order to release the pockets of natural gas caught in shale. It was a style of drilling originally designed for dental work, and then someone realized that they could use it for a technique for drilling for gas and switched it over to this. Oftentimes it's set up on a farmland, which can lead to many problems, the main ones being water and air pollution. Due to pro-fracking legislation, it's not known what chemicals are used in the fracking process. What is known are the reactions people and their pets have to the chemicals. It seemed that the most common side effects were likened to a severe allergic reaction. One of the worst things that happens during the drilling process is oftentimes the seal breaks and it will pollute the groundwater. This is because the shale that is being drilled is below the groundwater. When this happens, it makes people's well water undrinkable. Some companies will supply residents with drinking water, others do not. The ones that do only supply water for the people who live on the farms. They do not give them water for their crops. The question now is, if this is such a terrible process, why do farmers lease out their land to the fracking companies? The main answer is money. Fracking is being promoted as a safe and money as a safe form of drilling and a moneymaker, which it is for the companies who are doing the fracking. It seemed that in all the examples in the book that farmers ended up losing money and their way of life. The companies have a really good public relations department that comes in ahead of them and builds up fracking as a safe, non-invasive drilling practice, and then cons the farmers into signing the leases on the land. When the reality is, when it's all said and done, they would not do it again where they offered the opportunity to take it back. Alright, I'm going to move on to my analysis section of the book. I feel like there were two main objectives in this book. The first one being to warn people, mainly the people in fracking country, about the dangers of fracking so that they won't get involved with it. The idea, I think, here is that if you educate people about a problem, then you may be able to stop it. The other objective was to educate the general population about the dangers of fracking, to try to get the public on board with legislation to ban fracking. Currently, this isn't something that affects the general population, so people aren't really thinking about it. But when you really think about it, the fracking will eventually pollute all of our fresh water, and then we'll no longer have water to drink. I feel like the book itself worked really well as an argument against fracking, but the authors need to reach out to a wider audience if they want to have any impact. Publishing a book and putting it on the shelf in a bookstore doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get read. And the natural gas companies have a huge public relations campaign on television and the internet talking about how safe the system is. Why not start a campaign in opposition to that? We could create a public relations campaign in opposition. The main themes I ran across in this book were that fracking is bad, really bad. Also, I think that the authors wanted us to take this as a warning, that if we don't stop this now, we could end up polluting all of our water. The authors only reinforced my previously held beliefs about fracking. I've never thought it was a good idea and had had read about the water poisoning problem previously. I worry because water is a limited resource and these companies are treating it like there's no end to it. And it is a true statement that once you use water for fracking, like there's no way to undo the poisoning that has been done to it. You can't just purify it. They end up storing it in tanks under the ground and just letting it sit there for eternity. Um, the way that it changed my views on fracking is quite interesting. It actually widened my knowledge of how terrible it is and makes me more opposed to it. In that sense, I didn't realize that there was an air pollution issue involved in this as well. And I mean, I guess it's logical to think about it that way, but I didn't realize that we were actually polluting the air as well with this system. I thought that maybe it was only a groundwater uh, pollution problem, and uh, yeah. So I would recommend this book to anyone who thinks fracking is harmless. It's clearly not. Based on the stories told here, the authors use based on the stories told here, where the authors use actual examples of people whose lives are ruined by fracking. I feel like maybe it should be required reading for the more conservative members of our government. Uh, Maybe it would enlighten them to the dangers of fracking and how it has negative consequences. Um, this was not the most uplifting read, but I learned a lot more about the dangers of fracking. As I said in my analysis section, we need a public education campaign to deal with the problem. I would suggest spots on TV or perhaps an internet campaign. Um, right now, there's a lot of uh, lobbyists in the government that are pushing the government to allow for more widespread legislation that will allow the fracking to take place in more places, and they're putting money into this uh, group. Um, I don't know how to. I don't know what to suggest to fight the amount of money going into it, but I think a public education campaign would be beneficial. And I think that when people stand up and speak out, then we can maybe have an impact on the government. Um, yeah, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed my book review.